Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We do a couple of webinars a month. Some of them are overviews of ClubExpress that are introductions to people that are either new to ClubExpress or evaluating association management solutions. And we do some that are sort of functionally based, particular modules, whether it be the document module or using membership cards, or we're doing one coming up pretty soon on the additional member data and member attachments. And then we started doing another series on sort of role-based, ClubExpress for treasurers, ClubExpress for membership chair people. Today we're doing ClubExpress for club and association content creators. But before we get into that, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All of the phones and microphones are muted. So if you have questions, you can enter them into the chat window. And we will revisit the chat window at the end of Samantha's presentation to see if there are any questions that have not already been covered. And this is particularly useful for those of you who are watching a recording of this webinar. The recordings of the webinar are available. If you go to clubexpress.com and click on Cool Stuff, on the left-hand side, there's a Webinars tab. And if you click on that tab, you will see a schedule of upcoming webinars and a list of recently recorded webinars. And similar to that, we have a video tutorials tab that shows you the recent tutorials. And tutorials are much more succinct than webinars, and they're almost always sort of functionally based. All of the videos are stored on YouTube. So if you're watching a video on YouTube, you can click the subscribe button and optionally on the notification bell so that you can be notified when new content is published. And finally, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working really well for your organization, we would appreciate it if you would go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these review sites, leave a review so other people that are evaluating association management solutions can have the benefit of how well ClubExpress is working for your organization. So today, Samantha is going to be talking about content creation.
So today, as Alan mentioned, is another webinar in our series of role-based webinars where we're talking about content creators. So if you haven't heard the term content creator or you're not really familiar with what it is, it's really just the person who's responsible for creating content on your site. So this isn't someone who is configuring modules on your site. It's not going to be someone who is maybe managing your homepage like your webmaster. It's someone who's likely a volunteer, or really it could be anyone who's just creating content that displays on your site that attracts your members and even non-members to take a look at your site more often than just sort of logging in to do a couple of things once a month or so. So when you talk about content creation, what is it that you're creating? Content creation is really focused around semi-permanent content on your site. So content that maybe has a lifespan of a few months, maybe just a year, maybe it's seasonal content, but it's stuff on your site that's going to be replaced and refreshed. So when we're thinking about content, you want to think about evergreen versus timely. So evergreen content is going to be content on your site that is going to be there for pretty much the life of your site with very few updates. For example, your About Us page. That's something that's evergreen. That's something that's likely not going to change. Maybe a page with history about your club or your association. That's also evergreen content. Timely content might be focused more on a specific event that you're hosting, maybe a volunteering opportunity. It could be focused on something happening related to the field that you're in. So if you're a professional association and maybe there are legal updates surrounding your industry, that would be timely content. Maybe you'd create a custom page for that. So thinking about content creation means really thinking about that just-in-time content that you can produce for your members and your non-members. And so that goes into why should you even bother creating that content? Well, your website is a living, breathing thing. It may not talk back to you very often, but it shouldn't just get created and then kind of sit all by its lonesome and never have anyone touch it. You really should be refreshing the content on your site more often than not. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to update things on your website every single day, but you should be creating some sort of schedule where you're releasing new content. It increases your website's ranking when people are searching for your site on Google or whatever search engine they happen to be using. It's really helpful when you have new, fresh content because basically it forces people to go back to your site, take a look at what's going on, makes your site more popular. And it attracts those regular website visitors. So a lot of people sort of get into the rut where their members just are not logging in to use the site. Maybe they sign in to sign up for an event, but that's kind of it. And they don't spend very much time on their site. So if you have fresh content and your members expect that you're producing fresh content, they're going to visit your site again and again and really take the most advantage of it. And of course, you're also using it to circulate information. So, at the height of the pandemic, a lot of organizations may have put a COVID-19 resource page on their site, or maybe just a page noting how your events would be held now that you wouldn't be meeting in person. So, that would be an example of circulating relevant information, that just in time content. And it's also a way that you can just circulate general resources. So, if you're a local community organization and you want to provide resources about maybe a food bank or resources for local libraries, those are things that you might think about sharing with members and non-members. And again, it takes a content creator to produce that content for you. So who should create it? Anyone can be your content creator, including volunteers. So, of course, you can have people within your organization who are already in another role creating content that might be relevant to their role. Maybe your membership director wants to create a page outlining membership benefits. Maybe your events director wants to start creating custom web pages talking about events that you guys are hosting. So it really can be anyone, or it could just be someone who maybe has a writing background that wants to write blog posts for you. It could be someone who just has some spare time and wants to help out and create content for your site. What we're going to talk about today is what you can use and some tips for how you can set up your process and tips on things that you can use to actually make content creation even easier for your organization. Because let's face it, it might be difficult for you to gather volunteers to help you do just the basics for running your website, let alone creating that extra content. But with the tools that you have before you, it makes it really simple to do that. So what are the tools that we at ClubExpress give you as part of your website that are built in that you can use? Blogs. Blogs are a really wonderful way to just give your members a little bit of a voice to maybe share their opinions or write about a relevant topic to your organization. Of course, you can share news and articles, creating custom pages, even adding content to your homepage, and editing photos and photo albums that you can use either on specific areas of your website or within custom pages. So I'm logged into our demo club as Martin Smith. Now, Martin Smith is an administrator of the Northwest Balloon Club. So he has access to everything. When he goes into the control panel, he has access to all of the features that we're talking about. But one thing that I want to note is that Martin Smith doesn't have time to create content. He might help out managing the Northwest Balloon Club's website, but he simply does not have the time to write blog posts, produce news articles, create custom pages. He has to pass that off to someone else. So what Martin's done is he has taken a look at all of the features that he has, decided what's most important to him, and he's passing off some of those duties to another one of our members. So if we take a look at blogs, for example, when we're looking at blogs, you're essentially creating blog authors. Now, a blog author is a type of coordinator within your organization. And if you're not familiar with the difference between an administrator and coordinator, we have a lot of videos and tutorials talking about the differences and how you can set them up. But really what you want to do is grant those limited rights to your content creators. You don't have to give your content creator, who might just be a volunteer, access to everything on the back end of your site. You can give them really specific access. So when we're talking about blogs, that's as simple as creating a blog and popping over to the add or edit authors option to add different authors to that particular blog. Now, you can have as many authors as you need. So if you have 10 different people that are interested in writing up blog posts, all you have to do is choose them from your member database and add them to that particular blog. Now, the great thing about that is that when you have a blog author, they're not going to have access to the back end of your entire blog's module. They're not going to have access to every blog. They'll only have access to the blog that they're an author for. And it's the same thing when we take a look at some of our other modules related to communications, like news and articles. Now, news and articles is where you're going to have what's called a control panel coordinator, where they have access to the full news articles module. And that's just helpful because they can use that to add and edit articles as time goes on. And of course, remember that we have a news and articles widget. We have a blogs widget that you can place on your homepage on custom pages. So even if you don't want to always direct users to a full page that lists all of your news and articles, you can have that feed placed on your homepage. Now, if we take a look at the website tab and custom pages are one of the sort of special features of ClubExpress that will allow you to not just list a coordinator for all custom pages, but you can list a coordinator for individual custom pages. Now, the way that works is when I'm visiting my custom page manager, I find the custom page that I want. Let's say ballooning for kids. We have a ballooning for kids event coming up. Our content creator wants to create a web page to kind of advertise the event, give more information on it, maybe attract visitors and registrants. So what I've done as Martin Smith is select that coordinator icon. And I've added Colleen Carter as the coordinator for that page. Colleen has decided that she wants to help out. She wants to create more content for the Northwest Balloon Club site. So we've given her access not to all custom pages, just to one. So what I've done then is just create the custom page for her, haven't put any content on it. She went in and just used her own coordinator rights to edit that custom page.
Samantha, before you jump off of this, can you just review that page and then show the flyout menu where edit would be?
Yes. So if we take a look at the Ballooning for Kids page, when we're visiting the page on the right-hand side, we have a flyout menu that will take you to the back end of the page. And that edit option only appears for coordinators who have access to the page and for administrators.
And if she was a coordinator of a particular page, she would have a control panel link. And when she went to the control panel, she would have custom pages, but she would only be able to see pages that she is a coordinator for.
And next up, we're actually going to log in as Colleen Carter so we can see what her access actually looks like too.
Okay. Also, when you get a chance, would you revisit the couple of ways of setting up module coordinators?
Yes. Well, that actually can take us to our next option, which is photos and photo albums. Now, photos are one of the places that you're going to store those stock photos that you might be using within your custom pages on your homepage, in news and articles, in blogs. So when you're adding a coordinator to a control panel function where you're giving someone access to the entire feature, you're doing that from the control panel and using that configure option. So we, of course, have a tutorial that talks about how to use the control panel and how to set up coordinators and enable and disable features. So if I just find the option that I want on the left-hand side, that function, and I select photos, that's where I get my coordinators tab. And I can go ahead and I can add coordinators directly from this screen. Another option that you have for adding coordinator rights is under the club tab. And of course, the club tab might be different for you depending on the type of organization that you're with. And down at the bottom under the setup features, we have administrators and coordinators. And this is just another place where you can set up those admin and coordinator rights. So when we take a look at coordinators, we see a list of everyone who is a coordinator, and we can select the functions icon to view and edit all of the rights that they have. Now, those rights are going to be separated by tab. You can pick and choose, as if you're ordering off of a menu, what items those members should have access to. Another way that you can take a look at those particular rights is by function. So if I switch to function view, I get to see all of the functions and view and edit all of the members who might have access to those functions using that coordinator icon, or I can remove access to those functions as well. So there are a lot of different ways that you can ensure that your content creators have the access that they need, or really what's important is them having just the access they need or only the access that they need, as opposed to just making them an administrator and giving them access to the entire back end of your site. So photos would be a place where, again, you're storing those stock photos or even photos that you've taken yourselves as members of your organization that you're using across your site. Photo albums is a module that you can activate. Now, photo albums are going to be ways that you can group and share photos across your site with your members. You can create slideshows with photo albums. And of course, you can actually create photo albums that your members can contribute to. Now, if I select search without entering any search criteria, it's going to give me a list of any photo albums that I've created. So a couple of things to note here. Like our custom pages, you can set coordinators at the photo album level, which means, again, that your coordinator is only going to have access to the photo album that you give them access to. And if I select that coordinator icon, I see that we've given Colleen access to that photo album as well. Now, your members have the ability, if you select the option, to create their own photo albums. So if I take a look at my photo album options, we are currently allowing member photo albums. Now, what that's going to do is allow your members to create their own photo albums from within their member profile and add their own photos. And then you can choose to actually display those photo albums as part of your site. Now, a lot of people ask if we can have members all contribute to the same photo album. Kind of. So if we go back to our photo album manager, let's say that you have one big event and you want your members to all be able to store their photos within the same photo album. All you'd have to do is figure out what members have taken photos at that event, find them, and add them as coordinators to the same photo album. That way, you don't have to worry about grabbing photos from every single photo album that every individual member has created. And you can always remove those rights once that project has concluded. So maybe a couple of weeks after you've opened up this photo album, you send out a blast email letting your members know that you've created a photo album for all of your members to contribute their photos to. And then once that expires, you can go in, remove all of their rights, and you still have all of those photos stored. So that's one of those things that I like to call a sort of turnkey operation, where you're not doing very much as an administrator or coordinator other than setting up the photo album, creating a blast email to let your members know that that photo album is available and they can add photos to it based on the rights that you've given them. And then you can go through those photos and add them to your custom pages. And you've done very little other than sending out an email and giving a handful of people rights to add photos to that photo album. So now what I want to do is log out of this website as Martin Smith, and I'm going to log in actually as Colleen Carter. We've noticed that Colleen Carter has volunteered to do quite a bit, and she has been given a lot of access across the site. So when I sign in as Colleen Carter, right away, I can see that I do have a link to the control panel. So let's check that out. It's a very bare bones control panel that we're looking at because Colleen only has access to a handful of things. So we only have a couple of tabs. We have the website tab, which is going to include custom pages, photos, photo albums, and web graphics. So we have photos for uploading our stock photos. We have web graphics in case she wants to upload logos or banners. And of course, our photo albums. In the communications tab, we have news and articles, but you notice we don't have that blogs feature, and she was listed as a blog author. So we'll talk about how you might navigate to that as a coordinator when you only have access to the blog that you're writing for, as opposed to the entire module. But let's jump back to the website tab. We see that we have access to custom pages. And if I select custom pages, all I see is the page that I have access to. I can still edit that main version. I can still view all of the versions that I may have created myself. And you'll see that I don't have a handful of options. For example, I don't have the ability to delete the custom page. So as a coordinator, I'm only able to add. There are very few things that I can do aside from that. Like I can't, for example, delete the page. So again, if I just pop into my edit icon, I can use the page builder tools the same way that another administrator might be able to use them and insert all of that relevant information for my custom page. And then, of course, you want to think about setting up a process for how this content actually gets placed on your site. This likely will involve your webmaster. Now, your webmaster is not going to be the one who's necessarily creating this. Colleen, the volunteer content creator, is the one who's actually making the content. When she's done, all she has to do is contact your webmaster to let them know that their custom page is done. And your webmaster then just throws it on your website menu. And that's all that that person has to do. So all of the work is being placed on that volunteer who's maybe just popping in for 20 or 30 minutes to create that custom page for you. And if we go back into the control panel, it's the same with our photo albums. Now, with our photo albums, again, we only gave Colleen access to the photo albums that she needed. So we've given her access to those albums. You can see that she can still add and edit photos. She can manage all of those herself. And now let's talk about communications. We've gone over using news and articles. Now, Colleen's going to have access to the news and articles function the same way that anyone else who is a control panel coordinator would have access to it. She can add articles, create articles herself, and it's up to you as administrators or coordinators to determine when that content actually gets placed on your site. So thinking about some processes that you might put in place, whether that content creator would be coordinating with anyone else in your organization to make sure that content gets pushed out to your site. I mentioned that Colleen is a blog author, but she doesn't see the blogs module in the control panel like you would normally expect to see it. Now, blog authors are going to be accessing their blog in kind of a different way, similar to the way that Colleen could have navigated to the Ballooning for Kids page from their menu, and then use that edit icon in the flyout menu because she has access to that page. We're going to navigate to blogs from our menu. And Colleen knows that she is an author for All About Gear. So if she goes to read that blog, she sees something that regular members aren't going to see, which is the ability to edit posts that she's created or add a post. And adding a post is really just as simple as using our content editor, adding photos. And of course, with blogs, you have the ability to save drafts as opposed to just pushing it out to the website. So perhaps thinking about some of the setup options that you might put in place or your best practices within your organization would be recommending that all of those posts that are created might just be saved as drafts, have a second or third set of eyes looking at those before they actually are published and shared to the rest of your members. So some of the setup suggestions that we've gone over today: the creator access and rights. Blog authors. So we talked about giving access to members to write up blogs, to be able to go through those blogs and pick and choose where those authors have access to, and noting that the blog author may not be able to access blogs from the control panel if they don't have access to the full module, noting that they're going to have to go into the blog to actually write their post. News and articles coordinators, making sure that they have access to the features they need access to, especially if they're adding photos and content to their website or to their pages, so that they have access to those features that are going to allow them to do that. Custom page coordinators. So we talked about adding a coordinator to an individual custom page. Versioning that you can use. We've talked a lot about our new versioning system that we released with the page builder tools that you have. Versioning is a really great way to allow coordinators to create new versions of pages or to create multiple versions of pages as time goes on. They can label the versions with their name, and they can set those versions to not be active until, again, that second or third set of eyes takes a look at the pages that they've created. Photo album coordinators, we talked about not only adding a content creator as a photo album coordinator, but ways that you can have all of your members contribute to the same photo album at once. Now, one of the things that I mentioned at the start of our time together was allowing those content creators to help you refresh your homepage just a little bit. Now, you might be a little bit leery about giving access to your homepage to just another volunteer, and that's completely understandable. So, one of the ways that you can sort of bypass that, but still allow your content creators to be able to create content to go on your homepage is to set up a custom page that your coordinators can use to create content for your homepage, and then copy cells of content across pages. So let me go right back to our demo site to kind of show you what that might look like. Now, I am going to sign back into the website as Martin Smith. Now, Martin Smith has decided the Northwest Balloon Club homepage needs a little bit of a refresh, needs a facelift. So instead of just bringing someone in, giving them access to the homepage, which he might feel is a little bit of an issue, he wants to make sure that everything that's on the homepage has been passed through him. Maybe the board would also like to look at it as well. So what he can do instead is in custom pages, we take a look at all of the custom pages that we've created, and we scroll down a little bit, we see a custom page called Homepage Edits. And within that custom page, we've made it not active because we're never actually going to activate that page. We're just using it as maybe a sandbox that you allow your coordinators to work with. And if I take a look at what I've set up as just the main version of that page, it's just blank. You can have a main version of the page that is entirely blank. It's just a template that's there for your coordinators and content creators to work with. And then all I would have to do is add some content. And again, we're just dragging content over. We are dragging cells over and widgets over. And if I go ahead and add an image, let's say that I'd like to maybe have some images and some text waiting for us here. Once I have content in a cell, I can copy the individual content from that cell. And if you haven't seen our webinars that we've done on tips and tricks for using the page builder, it mentions being able to copy content, not just within one custom page, but you can copy that content across pages. So I'll double check that I've selected copy here. And what I'm going to do is go back into the control panel, open up my home page, and we'll go ahead and open up our main version. I will add a row template, select the cell that I'd like to place that content into, drag over my paste widget, and now I have content that I've created in a separate page that I can just pull over, drag into my home page. And again, it has eliminated one more job for the webmaster, one more job for whoever manages your homepage. Your content creator can create that content in a separate area where it's not affecting your homepage. You don't have to worry about the content creator accidentally activating that section on the homepage before your board reviewed it, before you had that second or third set of eyes look at it. And you can allow them to create that content on your own and just push it out whenever you're ready.
Along the same lines, Samantha, there's a question here. It says, can you duplicate a custom page to create a new similar page, not a version, for posting separately?
Absolutely. So if we take a look back at our custom pages, There are a couple of things to note about copying custom pages. So, because we introduced that versioning system, now when you copy a custom page, let's take a look at ballooning for kids. If I make a copy of that custom page, as long as there are versions of the page that have been actually created, at the very bottom here, when you're copying a custom page now, you actually get to select the version that you'd like to copy. So perhaps the original version of the page was not working for the page that you created, but you actually like the ideas and the layout and you'd like to use it in a future page. I can see right away which is the active version. And then I can choose any of the other versions that I'd like to use to create that copy. So the last thing that I want to talk about would be some design suggestions, ways to sort of make sure that your branding is consistent across your site, or ways to just make sure that you're making their job as a content creator just a little bit easier. You can set up custom page templates. So we talked about being able to copy custom pages. So let's say your implementation engineer created a custom page and you really like the layout and the style. You can create copies of that custom page and not have to fiddle with recreating the wheel. Create a copy of the custom page and replace the content. Create a copy of that custom page and label it as template copy only. That way, your content creators never are using the template that you've created. They're always going to make a copy of it so that you always have that same look and feel across your site. When talking about look and feel, in your website look and feel, which you can access by visiting the control panel and the website tab, all the way at the bottom in the setup section, website look and feel. This is where you're going to be setting up your sort of standard coloring and branding that you're using across your site. It's where you're setting up the colors that are being used across your site, where you're setting up the text styles. So all of your heading styles, heading 1, 2, 3, your body text, all of that is being set in website look and feel. And those styles will carry through to all of the pages that you create. If, of course, you have any programming experience, you can also set up custom CSS. So if you have styles that you'd like to create, for example, for buttons or for heading styles that you'd like to, maybe make a little bit fancier, you can use custom CSS to add those styles to your site. And again, they're going to follow all around your site. They'll apply to custom pages. They'll apply to the home page as well. And then the last option that we'll talk about within design would be that image editor. So don't forget that across your website, when you're taking a look at photos, web graphics, what's included is an image editor tool. Now, when I'm looking at my list of photos, I can, of course, view the photo, clicking the eyeball icon. I can edit the properties of that photo, like the title. I can copy the link to that photo, delete it, or that last icon is our image editor icon. And there are some basic things that you can do just to kind of adjust some of the images that are on your site, like cropping, changing and adjusting the brightness, and even resizing the photo. You can make copies of that and save it directly to your photo library. And so the last couple of items are just some suggestions, things that we at ClubExpress have used. I personally have used these sites. There are a handful of free sites that you can use material that is not copyrighted. So you don't have to worry about paying for the material. You don't have to worry about crediting. For icons, I'm a big fan of a site called Icon Monster without the E. So that's not a typo. It's where you can get vector icons for really anything. And when you download them, you can download them in different formats. You can download them as PNG. You can change the coloring, the sizing, even add an outline to the icons as well. So that's kind of where you can get some really nice looking basic icons that will get points across to your members really easily. I've used Icon Monster for a couple of years now, and I really like it. And for stock photos, of course, you would always want to try and get photos that show you and your members actually engaging in activities, but we're not all master photographers. We can't all take really great looking photos, or maybe we just don't have the time to. I have a handful of websites that are really great for free stock photos. I use Unsplash in particular a lot. I really like their photos. They're extremely high quality. And of course, I'm not getting paid from any of this because all of these sites are free. So I'm just sort of going on about these photos, but they're really wonderful sites to go to for stock photos to make sure that your website looks fresh, it looks clean, it looks modern, and you can find photos for really anything. So if we take a look at the custom page that I created, Ballooning for Kids, all of the photos on this page I got from Unsplash. The icons I downloaded from Icon Monster. And these are really professional looking photos. I've added some coloring because it's a Ballooning for Kids event. I added some bright colors to make it a little more exciting for kids. And again, all of the media that you see on this page here, I got for free. So it doesn't cost a lot to put great looking content on your website. It takes a little bit of time, but again, you're able to sort of pass that off to someone who maybe wants to help out, maybe has a little bit of a design eye and wants to put more content on your site to help freshen it up a bit. And all of this is available to you pretty simply. Alan, how are we doing with questions?
We've got a couple of questions, and I also want to expand some of the things that you were talking about based on some of the questions.
Yes.
The first thing that says, our club is running a competitive league. I'd like to be able to post weekly scores from matches and team standings. Please help. How do we do that? Well, my first inclination was to create either a custom page or a news item and put the most recent scores at the top of the page. I think a custom page would add the most flexibility, and you could put this on your menu as, recent scores. Or you could do it as a blog post and make it sort of a running commentary about the scores and the events of the week. So instead of just having one page with the current scores, it might be a scores blog, and you make the posts weekly. And so somebody could look and see what the standings were a couple of weeks ago or last year or something like that. There's another thing that I do on some sites that I've managed, and that is when somebody has, say, a monthly newsletter. And one of the things that they could do is you have a monthly newsletter that's a PDF file, and you would upload it to your document library. So what I would do is I would say, okay, here is the June 2021 newsletter. I would update that into, say, a newsletter folder. And so you've added that file and it says newsletter 2021. But I also create a newsletter called the current newsletter. And so if you click on committees for a moment, let's just see if we have one here. Just go into edit mode and go into anything. Go to tips and tricks, for example. And what I would do, if you go to click on the edit icon for tips and tricks, the first one, at the bottom should be to update the file name. So let's assume that this document is not called tips and tricks. It is called current newsletter. Now, I've already uploaded the June 2021 newsletter. What I would do is I would click on update here. It will ask me for that same PDF. And you can preserve the original file name. So this way you can take this document and put it on your menu as the current newsletter. So you're uploading it twice. One is a new item, a new document, and the other is just updating this document that you've called current newsletter. And that current newsletter is the one that gets put on the menu so that you don't have to keep changing it every time you upload a new document. So that's a really handy thing to know, that you can actually change the content of a document in the document library. Okay, now we come on to another topic that says, is there a way to allow any member to add to a blog? And as an author, the answer is no, but you can allow blogs to be configured to allow comments. And the comments can either be from members only. Click on the edit icon, allow comments from members only, or for the public. So, or you can just say that you're not allowing any comments. But I don't know that this is the really the right approach. There's a message here that's related. It says, during the height of dog show season, we have members in different shows of different sizes in different states every weekend. I'd like to set up something that any member could blog or otherwise announce their latest successes or victories immediately, ideally with their titling pictures. I'd rather not use forums, but actually have it as a page or blog on the website. Any suggestions for the best approach? And my suggestion is, yes, you should be using forums. Forums is the method where your members can be content creators. And not only can they use the forums, you should be encouraging to use the forums. And as Samantha was mentioning earlier, you want a reason why people should come to your website in the first place and why they should keep coming back. And discussion forums is a way for people, your members in particular, to talk to one another, to comment on one another, to say, we just had this meet and here's our standings, or I just went to a show and here's what I thought about it. This is really important, to have your members be content creators rather than only depending on your administrators and coordinators. You want your members to be actively engaged in discussions. Now, that's not to say that forum moderators and coordinators just sit back. What you can do is you can lead discussions, or you could prime threads. A wonderful example of this would be, what are the 3 things that you now know that you wish you knew when you got into whatever it is, into dog shows or into canoeing or into League of Women Voters? What advice do you have for people that are new to your organization? So by priming these things and shepherding some of the answers and directing people, it gives people, particularly your new people, a way of coming in and seeing existing discussion threads. So think of your members as content creators. There's a question here: are forums exclusive to members, or can the public participate if they wish? Forums can be set up so that they are read only to the general public, but they have to be members in order to participate. And it says, how can we easily create a means of communication between registrants of an event, just like a meetup or comments capability? We create many events each month, so need an efficient way to accomplish this. I don't know, Samantha, you have any ideas about that? Because you can send out emails to them,
Mhm.
but I don't think that we have a way of setting up, say, a forum just for a particular event. We can set up forums for members of a committee, but I don't know that we can set up.
So I have a little bit of an idea. You can actually set up, if you are a user of the mobile app for your organization, you can create events for specific channels. And you can also set up a channel that members can use to chat with one another based on an event. We don't have the ability to create a forum based on event registration. You can base the forum on interest if the interest aligns with an event, but there really isn't a set way for members to be able to talk to each other just based on event registration.
If a photo is uploaded to a photo album, does it appear in the photos module? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
May we add stock photos to our photo albums? If you have permissions, if they're either in the public domain or whatever, but you should not use content that you do not have permission for.
Mm-hmm.
And what are our thoughts about attributing credit to stock photos? You would just put that in the author section of the photo when you're uploading it, because when you upload a photo, you can say who the photographer was.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would say provided by a stock image or whatever.
And most of the photos on some of the sites that I shared, Unsplash in particular, they don't require attribution when you use the photo. So if that's something that you're really not sure of, there are a lot of sites out there that have photos that don't require attribution. And so if that's something that might be confusing, or you're very afraid of the copyright police, I came from the legal industry and worked in intellectual property, so I can attest to that. Using photos that do not require attribution would be your safest bet.
Yeah, it's just similar to the idea of using music in a video that you upload to YouTube. If you don't have rights to the music, then it stands a good chance that YouTube is going to not let you publish.
Mhm.
Here, we'll let you publish, but really, you should be the one who does the due diligence as to whether or not the photo should be included. We are not doing any checking to see if you have rights to use the photo.
Mhm.
Let's
I
see.
have a question for the folks. If you guys want to chime in, do any of you have someone who is responsible for content creation currently? Or is everyone kind of trying to figure out who they might add as a content creator?
Gig Harbor says, everything falls to me. People send me messages like, put something in about this. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons to set up discussion forums so they can put it in. It's the same thing when someone says, I need you to change my email address. And you explain to them, you can go to your profile and change your email address. We're
Mhm.
trying to enable your members to do things. Say a follow up for an event communications. I understand you can't create a forum based on event registrants. Is it possible to create an email distribution list based on event registrations? And the answer is yes, absolutely. If you go to email from within an event, as opposed to the email, the general blast email system, within the event, when you look at the distribution list, you can send an email to all people that are registered for an event, all people that are not registered for the event, all people that are registered and have not yet paid for the event. So yes, by all means, you can create emails that are very specific to that event. Lori says, I'm going to be the creator for our site, but I'm new to all of this. Well, we hope that some of the information that Samantha has presented to you is very useful to you. Dorothy says, finding volunteers to commit to posts is difficult. All content comes to me. Well, in any organization, even in forums, 80% of the forum content will come from 10% of your members. And that's just kind of the way it is. People like to lurk. It says, we are new ClubExpress users where our board members can do content creation. Until I can understand how to do it, I do not want to open it up to members. And yes, that's reasonable. We used to divide work between webmaster and content coordinators. Sadly, our content coordinator passed away. Now other board members have stepped up to help create content. You can actually ask people to create content and just, again, do it through forums or do it through an email. Ask people to participate. Don't be shy. It's your organization. So, Samantha, you want to wrap it up?
Yes. So that is our webinar on content creation, making sure that you have all the right tools, that you kind of can take a step back and see everything that your site has to offer that can help you push more fresh content out to your site. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. I always appreciate seeing all of the questions and the comments, and I hope that this was really helpful to you.
Thanks, everyone, for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar.